Om Bhadram me api vataya manaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The Samashti, meaning the total, and the Vyashti, the individual, are connected. That same awareness from the standpoint of the total is called Brahman, equipped with the power to create, sustain, and resolve. That same Brahman gets the epithet Ishvara, God. That same awareness also obtains within the body-mind-sense complex, and it has a special name only from the standpoint of the body-mind-sense complex, a name that we can understand and assimilate. What is that name? Sakshi, witness. And this witness is an important to understanding the witness, connecting with the witness, identifying the witness is an important first step in the study of Vedanta. And this is what this chapter keeps on telling us. And first it establishes the witness in the form of this lovely analogy of the theater lamp, and then it urges us in the next portion that we are going to see today, in the concluding portion, it urges us to identify with the witness, because identifying with the witness is the last frontier of duality. I am the witness of everything that is happening within the body-mind-sense complex. All emotions I observe, all the bodily sensations, pain, heat, cold, I observe, and then sense of comfort also in relation to the body I can observe, and then what else? And that same Sakshi, when there is nothing to observe, goes by the name Atma. Because in sleep, what is there to observe? Nothing. Nothing is there to observe. So the Sakshi resolves, the Sakshi does not disappear. The Sakshi resolves into awareness, Satchidananda. So it is the last frontier of duality, because I'm holding on to the observer and I'm not holding on to the changing aspects of the body-mind-sense complex, or even this whole universe called the Jagat. In fact, the word Jagat itself has an interesting derivation. Jayate is born, Gacchati is gone, therefore Jagat. From Jayate we take Ja, and from Gacchati we take Ga. Jagat. Is born, is gone. And so, as long as I am identifying with all the is-borns and is-gones, then my sanity is also gone. Yeah. And so, therefore, I have to identify with the unchanging one, that which observes everything, called the witness. If I don't identify with the witness, I become witless. This is the truth. And underscoring this are two small sections that we will cover in the text, so we can have the satisfaction of having completed it. Because we have already covered the material here, but from the standpoint of the text, we should do this. So, in the 16th verse, up till verse 15 we have seen, in the 16th verse, what does he say? This external and internal. Bahir antar vibhagah ayam dehapekshah natu sakshini bahya deshasthaha dehasya antah ahankritihi. So, this division of internal Sakshi and external Brahman is only, Vidyaranya Swamiji cautions, from the standpoint of the body-mind-sense complex. From the standpoint of the body, I say within. And then from the standpoint of the body alone, I say outside. That which is outside, like the blowing wind, the rustling trees, the crashing waves, where are they? Outside. And then the fleeting emotions, the wave of emotions is where? Inside. And there is no difference between the two. I am the observer of everything outside. I am the observer of everything inside. This is this distinction between outside inside. The Swami cautions is only from the standpoint of the body, because one is so identified with the body. In fact, where the skin stops, I say, this is me. And where the last extremity, the middle finger, the longest finger, that is me. This is me. And what is this? Not me. What is this? Not me. We have a strange identification based on the sensation, the indriya, the organ of touch, the sense organ of touch. Where the sense organ of touch does not pervade, that is all not me. This is what is, we already saw this. Sahaja tadatmya means a kind of association which is from birth itself. Taking this as the starting point, we say, I am the sakshi of everything that happens outside. That is easier to delineate because it's happening outside. But I am also the sakshi of everything that is happening within the body, even little harder but still easier than saying I am the sakshi of all the thoughts that are falling in the mind. That is much more subtle, much more harder. And then finally to say I am the sakshi of the emotions, I am not being run roughshod by the emotions. That's the hardest of all, because we like to enshrine our feelings and put them in the puja room and make them permanent. So therefore, this caution is given, this inside outside, there is no two sakshis are not there. It is not from the standpoint of the sakshi that this inside outside distinction. This inside outside distinction is in keeping with our own orientation of what is happening within and outside, based on the identification with the sense of touch. And then he says, then what happens? Antasthaha dhihi sahaiva akshaihi bahiryatihi punaf punaha, again and again, this buddhi, this faculty of knowing, situated where? Outside or inside? Inside the body-mind-sense complex, situated as it were, sahaiva akshaihi sahaiva, along with the sense organs. What does it do? It appears bahiryati punaha, again and again, it appears to go outside, go within big apostrophes, big, commas. Why? Because the buddhi doesn't go. There is no going. But the sense organs also do not go. It's not like the ear grows one kind of elastic band and goes and cognizes the thing. But it appears to move with the sound. And then the sense organs appear to go, say, this particular bird. Like this, the cognition of things take place. And then what happens? Alas, what happens? Bhasya buddhistha chanchalyam. So the buddhi is not self-lit. It is bhasya, lit by the sakshi. Lit by this awareness, the buddhi comes to light. The buddhi, after all, is the dancer. She comes on the stage, the theater lamp lights her up, and then she dances. And so the buddhi is bhasya, lit up by another source. What is that source? Sakshi, lit up by the sakshi. Here we should not say theater lamp, okay? That's just the example. So, lit up by the sakshi, bhasya buddhistha chanchalyam, chanchalasya bhavah. Chanchala means restlessness. The restlessness, the movement of the buddhi, when it recognizes something, it has to move. It has to move from a non-thinker to thinker. A new role has come for the buddhi. Before, it was in stasis. Now it's a dynamic thinker. After the thought has gone, before the next thought arises, again it is in repose. So this change, repose, movement, repose, in the intellect, in the sense organs, in the mind, it belongs to what? Buddhi or Sakshi? Buddhi. It belongs to the mind, it belongs to the intellect, but because of our ignorance, Sakshini aropyate. We project it to be the Sakshi. This is the mistake. Sakshini aropyate vritha. Vritha means uselessly. Even though there is no basis for it, I say the I am restless. The I being the Sakshi, now we have to think of the I as not buddhi. As what? Sakshi, because we are graduating. Yes. So since this is the last session, we are graduating from seeing the self as the mind, as the buddhi, as the emotions. We have now migrated to Sakshi, but then still the buddhi is restlessness, the restlessness of the intellect, the restlessness of the mind, the movement of the sense organs, and the changes that they undergo in order to objectify something within or outside is attributed mistakenly, vritha. Vritha means mistakenly, uselessly to the Sakshi. Therefore, coming to the conclusion, I am restless, I am full, I am hungry, I am upset, I am sad, I am in pain. This is all a series of wrong conclusions, and this is what happens. And to illustrate this, a beautiful example, another baby example he gives, not as elaborate as the theatre lamp. He says, Grihantargato गृहान्तर्गतः स्वल्पः गवाक्षाद् आतपः अचलः. So, we have to think of an ancient house. Griha means house. In the ancient Indian homes, there would be windows and doors, of course, but then above that, we used to have little triangular or square or round little ventilators, tiny things, so that there would be free movement of the air. And the winters are not strong, in most places in India. So this was, Swami Vidyaranya was from the south. Definitely there is no winter, so we can easily, we don't have to plug those up and worry about what will happen if it is cold. It is never cold. And somebody used to say that in most of India we have only 2 seasons, hot and hotter. Okay, so this is so we can imagine little triangular openings near the ceiling for movement of air. This is called gavaksha. Gavaksha. There also is a very beautiful thing, eye of the cow. Maybe it was in that shape, I don't know. But usually if we see in old Indian homes in rural areas, it's usually either circular or triangular. So these small little things called cow eyes, these ventilators were there, and when the sun moved there, the ventilator would cast a small little triangular sunbeam into the house. Now, is the sunbeam moving or stationary? The coffee has not reached the brain yet. Smuggled coffee, okay? Yeah. So, is the beam of light falling from any place, from the ceiling, from the window, or from the small opening aperture, is it moving or is it stationary? It's not moving, yeah. It is stationary. It's not moving. We don't, we think only in the moment here. We don't go all the way. It's not moving because, of course, when the sun moves, it will eventually move. Yeah. And if you ask a cat, it will say, definitely it's moving. I have to shift my position to be in the sun. But we are not talking that far. Like right now, when it is there, is it moving? No. And here, Swami Vidyaranya asks us to do a small exercise. Position your hand underneath the beam of light. So the beam of light is in your hand, and move the hand along like this. Move the hand. What is the appearance? That the beam of light is moving. Beam of light is not moving. What is moving? Hand is moving. Hand is moving, or you can just position your body also, and it seems to move from this side to this side. As I pass through the beam of light, the beam supposedly moved from the left shoulder across my chest, and then through the right shoulder it exited. This is what is the appearance. But the reality is that the beam is right there. Whatever the beam is illumining, that is moving. The beam of light is not moving. But we make the mistake, even here, thinking that the beam is moving. This is exactly how the Sakshi, the witness, is an unchanging, unmoving Satchidananda, obtaining as it were within the body, mind, sense complex. And then the movement of the Ahankara, the movement of the mind, the movement of the intellect, the movement of the sense organs, the restlessness, and the various changing conditions thereof, I attribute to the unmoving I. You see the mistake here? Say yes even if you don't want to. So this is the problem. Just like on the unmoving rope, what happens? Because of my own fear, I see a snake and I swear, oh my God, it is moving, it is slithering, it is frightening. The rope is completely unmoving, but what have I done? I have juxtaposed a snake, I have projected a snake on top of the rope, and then I ascribe the movement of this imagined snake onto a stationary rope. Similarly, the stationary beam of light that is not moving, I attribute movement to it because something underneath is moving. And similarly, the stationary, all illumining Atma, known as the Sakshi, that obtains as the awareness in the body, mind, sense complex, what happens to that? That also is seen to be moving, even though it is not moving at all. And why do we say it is moving? Avichara siddha. Avichara siddha means this movement, ascribed movement, is ascribed how? Without enquiry, because of our own, what is that called? Ignorance, self-ignorance. And then it says, Nijasthana sthitas sakshi, the sakshi obtaining in its own place, unmoving, bahirantar gamagamau akurvan, without going back and forth anywhere, buddhi chanchalyat karoti iva tatha tatha. So even though the sakshi does not move, the sakshi gets a bad reputation. Just like the person who was not drinking in yesterday night story and got the bad reputation because that person was hanging around with somebody else drinking the results of karma, and then this person was also dragged into that identification mistakenly, even though that person was not drinking. Similarly, in the two-bird story that we saw, what is there? There also we have that same problem. One bird is going around flapping its wings and restless and wanting to hoard the berries, wanting to eat the berries and feeling a sense of lack, feeling a sense of insecurity. And the other one, secure in itself, complete, whole, is just shining the light on the restlessness. But then, if we just look at the birds in the tree, we come to the conclusion what? Both of them are going about. Both are eating the berries. Actually, really speaking, there is only one bird. What is that bird? Sakshi bird, Ishvara bird. What is the other one? A pale imposter. a sad, pale impostor. Similarly, in that which is exemplified is the one who says, I am the doer, the ahankara. Is a pale replica of the Sakshi, is a as though replica. It's like, what is that? We have these, I don't know this, I'm just, I have heard of it, that's all. So we have all these wonderful clothing and everything, which are brand names. Big brand name clothing, purses and all these accoutrements that one needs to go out. Everybody can't afford that. If you look at the price, you will get a heart attack. And so therefore, there is another alternative market where they copy the logo. And on some locally made stuff, they will attach the logo and then sell for a slightly lower price. And then we hope nobody knows, all right, that this is that famous bag, this is that famous coat, this is that famous dress. Nobody sees, and they just see the logo, because the logo and the marketing is everything. So this is like the sad rip-off. Okay, so the ahankara is like that. The ahankara takes the Sakshi brand. Sakshi is the original. Okay, yeah. Original only one, non-replicable original. But the ahankara, very sly, copies the logo and the non-movement of the Sakshi, and then puts that on itself, and then pastes that on the buddhi and the everything, and then says, oh, I'm also Sakshi. It confuses and tricks, because it's a sad, sad rip-off. It is not the Sakshi. It is just, what is it doing? It is as though moving about as the Sakshi, and then confusing us. This is what? This is why we have to be very, very careful. So, bahir antar gama gamau akurvan. Without going outside, inside, the Sakshi stays. And then what does the ahankara do? So, the ahankara is the one who says, I am the doer, I am the mover, I am the shaker. And then yet it pretends to be the Sakshi, and without really becoming or understanding itself as the Sakshi. So therefore, the Sakshi is seen as the doer, but the Sakshi is not the doer. Ahankara is the doer. When I say I am the doer, I am not the doer. The body-mind-sense complex is the doer, and along with the I notion, but then I ascribe the restlessness and the movement and the doership to the Sakshi. The Sakshi is free, and I am the one that feels bound, because when I identify with all the moving parts, then I feel like I'm falling apart. This is the reality. And so then it says that then Swami Vidyaranya repeats the same thing he did in the 16th verse. We will skip it because it's the same thing. It says the witness is neither inside nor outside. Indeed, all these spatial distinctions are within the space of the what we call the buddhi. When the ahankara resolves into the Sakshi, we will understand this fact. That is what Swami Vidyaranya says. And then, then he says that if there are, when we go into samadhi, or when we enjoy a quiet mind, a tranquil mind, this is the next verse, the 21st verse I'm summarizing. The 21st verse says, when we go into a certain quietude, we enjoy the quietude of mind, and the thoughts are not crowding us, because why? The raga dveshas have gone to sleep. I have disconnected from identifying with the raga dveshas, and then in the wake of this knowledge, the raga dveshas are not bothering the person. So when that happens, then we can say space as a category does not even exist. There is no outside, there is no inside. When I have thoughts, there is outside and inside, because the thoughts are inside, and the subject matter of the thoughts, the objects, are where? outside from the standpoint of this body, mind, sense complex. But in samadhi, in sleep even for that matter, or between two thoughts, there is no outside, no inside. Astu eva, let this be. Swami Vidyaranya says, don't get worried. Oh my God, inside outside concepts are going. Don't freak out. Because you are on the right track. You are on the absolute right track, because this inside outside definition is also an interim definition. Sakshi is also an interim definition. The Sakshi is in relation to what is observed, outside or inside. When there is nothing to observe, that Sakshi is called what? Satchit Ananda. I as Satchit Ananda has to be understood, but the prerequisite for understanding I as total, free of sorrow and all Ananda, full, complete, is to first catch hold of the observer, the changeless observer. We cannot bypass this step. And then then he concludes this particular section of inside outside by saying, antar bahirva sarvam va yam desham parikalpayet buddhistha deshagaha sakshi tatha vastushu yojayet. And Swami Vidyaranya says, I don't blame you for being confused. Because what happens? Sitting here, let us say, you think about the place from where you came. Whatever your place, from where you came here, what happened? You think of that place. It is far away. You came from some faraway place, you think of that place. And where has the buddhi gone? Already to that place. Ahankara, this is my hometown, has already reached there. What about Sakshi? Unmoving Sakshi has illumined your hometown. Even though it is a big plane ride away, the unmoving Sakshi, sitting, so to speak, within the body-mind-sense complex, has illumined the hometown over there and all your life over there, your job and your friends and your daily routine. It has already illumined. And we can take this a step farther. Now we can say, wonder what the dark side of the moon looks like. There are now, countries sending their spaceships to the other side of the moon that is not visible from the earth. Wonder what that looks like. Where have I gone now? I have reached the moon. I have reached. Sitting here without needing oxygen, without needing space suit and all freeze-dried foods and all to take with me, I have already reached there. And if I think of a distant planet, I'm already there. Even though it is light years away, hundreds and thousands of light years away, I am there. I think of the star Arundhati, and I am there. These are all sacred stars. Then there is one more nakshatra, Ardra nakshatra, and there is a ritual to watch that. And many times it is cloudy, you don't watch that. You go there with the mind. And wherever the mind goes, the Sakshi goes or not? Doesn't go. Appears to go. Yes, go. Think of that sunbeam moving through the body when you just come in front of it and dance. It appears to go. It has to go to illuminate, to illumine the thought of the dark side of the moon. It has to go there also, but it doesn't really go there. Why? Because as Satchidananda, it is already there. It is all pervasive. So this whole setup is just so that we have some inner space between all these dancing entities, the cacophonic entities, all the misstepping, the stepping all over the universe entities, the mind, the intellect, the sense organs, and the I, which is shining the light on all of them without participating in any of them. That separation has to be maintained at all costs for a sane life and for moksha. This is the teaching. And then what happens? Yadyad rupadi kalpyeta buddhya tat prakashayan tasya tasya bhavet sakshi swatah vag buddhi agocharaha. So then, yadyad rupadi kalpyeta, which whatever the mind conjures up, kalpa means to conjure up, to imagine, to visualize, whatever the mind visualizes, whether it is right here within the body or whether it is in outer space, the Sakshi appears to take on those forms and illumine them. In relation to the dark side of the moon, the Sakshi is there as I am the witness, I am the observer of the thought of the dark side of the moon. I am the observer of this thought, I am the observer of outer space thought, I am the observer of this star. So the Sakshi appears to illumine everything. Can we give it the label of illuminer? No. Why? Because at the end of everything, including this text, the Sakshi is not objectifiable at all. Vak, speech, buddhi, the intellect, agocharaha. Agocharaha means not found, not objectifiable. The Sakshi cannot be objectified. It illumines in silence. It cannot be recognized as object. Oh, but you say recognize yourself as Sakshi. Because it is self-evident you can do that. We come back, we recycle back to the question, do you exist? What will you say? Yes. Coffee reached the brain. Okay. So, yes, I exist. Unhesitatingly the answer comes. That means what? The Sakshi need not be objectified. It cannot be objectified. And it need not be objectified. Need not be objectified. Why should it be objectified? See, I come to know the things in two ways. What is the first way? It is pramana siddha. It's objectified by a means of knowledge, like even this water glass. I see the glass and I see it, the eyes objectify the glass. This is how everything in the world is known, by making it into an object through the various means of knowledge which were discussed earlier, which we employ to bring this to my cognition. Inference, etc., direct perception, inference, all these are means of knowledge with which we objectify the entire jagat of names and forms. The entire world of names and forms is objectified. It is what is called pramana siddha. Pramana siddha means objectified with the help of a way of knowing. And what about I? What pramana will I use? No pramana. No pramana is needed. Why? Because it is swatas siddha. It is self-established, it is self-luminous, it is self-evident. For that which is self-evident, I don't need another source of knowing to know that which is self-evident. An example we can take is shining. You see, if you want to show, so let's say people from Mars come here, entities from Mars come here, they want a tour of the earth. And we can communicate with them via ChatGPT and all these things, Gemini, all these AI stuff. You can communicate with them. So they say, show us around. And then you want to show them everything. This is our sun. You want to show them the sun. And then what will you do? Hold one flashlight. Shine your mobile flashlight to reveal the sun? No. The sun is self-revealing, relatively speaking. In this example, the sun reveals itself and reveals everything else. So too the Sakshi is self-revealing. Therefore, it cannot be objectified. And besides, it need not be objectified. Cannot and need not. Both of them we have to see. And then it is a very beautiful thing to understand that when everything in the world has to be cognized by what? Sakshi. The Sakshi self-cognized. So you are unlike anything else in this universe. You are special, you are the only thing that is self-established, that is self-evident. Everything else has to become evident to you. So therefore, I cannot identify with the Jagat, because the Jagat is that which I objectified. The Jagat becomes evident to me, I become evident to the self. So Jagat means that which is born and gone, outside and inside. Same thing with the feelings. They become evident to me, my emotions. I am not them, therefore. I am the self-shining Sakshi. The emotions become evident to me. They are not on the same order of reality. Sakshi Paramarthikam Sat. Sakshi is absolute because it is self-evident, and everything that the Sakshi objectifies is what? Is empirical, relative. So the confusion between the relative and the absolute is completely unnecessary, and that is what Swami Vidyaranya says, that the nature of the Sakshi cannot be made the nature of the Sakshi cannot be made evident through a means of knowledge. Then he says something very nice. He says, supposing you have a question, Katham tadring maya grahyaha. How to get this? Grahyaha. How to catch this? How do I catch this? Yes, I understand what you're saying, but I'm still somewhere little bit. How to catch this? He says, put the catcher to rest. Yes, this is what we talked about in the beginning. The catch, kill, eat mentality has to go. Let the knowledge of the Sakshi catch you. You stop catching. You stop operating. You stop catching. You stop trying to grab, trying to conquer. Don't become Julius Caesar. I saw, I came, I conquered. No need to do that. Anything that you see, you don't have to conquer. And this is unlike anything that you see. It is yourself alone. It is not available for conquest. Sarva graha upashantau. When that tendency to catch, kill, and make my own, and now I am the knower of Brahman. When you say like this, when that orientation is there, nothing will happen. No change in the sadhaka, in the seeker will happen. Therefore, what do I have to do? I have to let go of this. Let go of the tendency to grab, to hold, to get it. Let it get me. I have to look upon this sacred teaching with the reverence and open-heartedness, so the heart lotus opens in the light of this knowledge to reveal its glory. That is what I have to do. There is no role here for me other than to sit back, relax, and be open to this knowledge. So, sarvagraha upashantau, when everything goes away, then only this will come, all the tendency to grab. And then he says that, na tatra manapekshosti. Manapeksha means there is no reason to have a separate pramana to establish the Sakshi. The pramana is needed as Vedanta to know the nature of myself as the Sakshi. Yes, the Vedanta is a separate means of knowledge, but Vedanta does not establish the I, which is already here, already self-evident. And then Swami Vidyaranya says, if that is not evident to you, please start all over again. Shastram patha guroho mukhat. Search for a teacher, and then search for a teacher, sit at the feet of the teacher and study this all over again, because that is what the whole thing is. We don't get it the first time, and it's not our fault. The lid of ignorance and wrong knowledge is very, very thick. There's no need to feel bad. Like the student who asks at the end of the Kathopanishad, question, what? Upanishadam bho bruhi, please, oh sir, teach me the Upanishad. Revered sir, please teach me the Upanishad. And the teacher says, we learn how to teach from these kinds of teachers in the Upanishad. Anybody would have said, "What were you doing? Sleeping? What were you doing? The whole Upanishad has already been taught." He quietly says, "The Upanishad has been given. Now I'll give you some sadhana so that this doesn't happen next time when you study." And so it is all about listening, listening, listening. What we call the so-called enlightenment is not an event that just suddenly comes. It is a growing clarity as we shed layers and layers of misapprehension gathered from many, many lives. How do we shed this? By studying the Upanishad. Okay, that's why it's called Upanishad. So it makes one shed naturally. So then Swami Vidyaranya, in all his compassion, says that if tadrig vyutpatti apeksha chet, if you have this, you want to derive Brahman, you objectify Brahman, please shrutim patha guror mukhat. You please let go of this, and then start studying again. Let go of the tendency to grab. And then the final verse says also something beautiful. Yadi sarvagriha tyagaha ashakyaha. Ashakyaha means the person says, I am not able to let go. I am holding on too tight. I overthink everything. I'm holding on too tight. I don't have the ability to let go at all. Doesn't matter. Swami Vidyaranya says, Sharanam tadadhinam dhiyam vraja. Take refuge in the cognitive process which has been described very nicely by the separation between the one who participates in the drama and the Rama that shines the light on the drama. Take refuge in that cognitive process. Cognitively delineate the Sakshi within and grab a hold of the Sakshi, and surely a time will come when these teachings will speak to you. When these teachings will speak to you, in the beginning, you just deliberately keep identifying with the Sakshi, and then it will become a natural process in time. So, Sharanam tadi adhinaha antarbahihi avashaha anubhuyatam antarbahihi eshaha anubhuyatam. So then it will become a matter of natural understanding. As natural as now you say your name is being called and you say, I'm here. Are you present? Yes, I'm here. Even in the sleep, when your name is called, you wake up. Very naturally, you identify with the name. And then now what will happen with this practice is that when you are called, what will you say? I am Sakshi. The identification with the Sakshi may take time, but then when you practice cognitively also, till the knowledge enters and is assimilated, this becomes a practice for those who like to think and who are not able to recognize the inner space. Create the inner space by keeping on dwelling upon this chapter, and then letting go, and then letting go of everything else, and doing all the other things that we talked about practically, and then one will definitely get this knowledge. And with that wonderful promise, the text comes to an end, and so does this lecture series. And I'm always, it's a great privilege and a delight to be here in this sacred space of the wonderful ashram. And then I am very thankful to all of you for hanging in there, even though some of the concepts were difficult. You showed great perseverance, and I'm sure that with Bhagavan's grace and with all the wonderful Swamijis here, the journey of understanding oneself as Sakshi naturally will definitely be completed sooner than later. This is my prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ। Thank you very much.
So I'd like to take this opportunity and give a great appreciation